Hi, I'm Mr. Escott. I'm the Head of Media Studies at Fitzwymark. And in this presentation, I'll attempt to explain what the subject of media studies is, what it involves, and also how the pupils are assessed at the end of the course. So, essentially, the media studies is the study of mass communication. So, any form of mass communication, any form of media can be studied during media studies. This there, newspapers, books, posters, internet, magazines, radio, film, social media, and so on. So any way of taking a message to a large number of people at the same time, any piece of media, is part of media studies. So there are four key concepts in media. Those are institutions, media, language, representation, audience. As long as you're studying one of those things with regards to a piece of media, then you're doing media studies. You know, you could be doing two or three of them, even four of them sometimes, but as long as you're looking at one of those aspects, that is essentially what the subject involves. So the first of these concepts would be institutions. That's the people that either make, distribute, or regulate media, and it's kind of, I guess, the business studies side of the course, really, when you're looking at kind of how these media businesses operate. There is some terminology on the slide there for you, most of which I'm sure you're familiar with. But you get these massive media conglomerates like people like News Corp that own lots of different types of media, but then you also get companies. For example, Mojang, like an independent video games company that still operates as well. So you're looking at the kind of the business studies side of things, really, and kind of that aspect of the subject. Second key concept, media language. I mean, just like any other subject, really, media studies has its own set of terminology. So things like semiotics, which is the study of symbols and what they mean. Masthead, I'm sure most of you are familiar with, which is the title of a newspaper, its kind of badge, its logo, if you like. Cell lines are what you get on the front of magazines, telling you what's inside. The media often splits audiences up quite cruelly into different demographics. So ABC1 would be your kind of middle class, upper class, wealthy, well-educated audience, if you like. Uses and gratifications theory. There are quite a lot of theoretical aspects to media that we look at, even things at the bottom there like the shot types, long shot, extreme long shot. It's all the terminology that is used within the subject, and therefore part of the media language, part of the techniques that the media institutions use to put their products together. Third key concept, representation, refers to what kind of world the media product that you're looking at is showing you. Cage is a very good way at the top there of remembering a kind of little checklist. What kind of class are you looking at? What age are you being shown? Gender, ethnicity, and disability. All of those things are going to cover in representation. And then, are you looking at the stereotypical views of certain types of people? Are you getting a sort of stereotype of an upper class man, or a stereotype of a working class woman, whatever it may be? Are you getting the opposite of that? Are you getting a counter stereotype? Are there elements of society that are underrepresented in the media or in the media product that you're looking at? Are there elements of society that are misrepresented and kind of given an unfairly stereotypical representation, whereas really the reality might be something else? So these are all aspects of representation. It's probably the hardest aspect of the course for the pupils to kind of get their heads around in the way. It's just, really, it's the way that the world is showing you, the way that the media is showing you the world that is out there, and any kind of biases and kind of reasons that they might be doing that. And so the last key concept is audiences, and who is watching, listening to, reading the media, and how those are then categorized and targeted and what have you, and the way that audiences behave. There's a couple of kind of theories up on the screen there. Needle theory is the idea that it's quite an old-fashioned idea that the media used to just inject the audience with information, literally, and the audience would then act on that information and react in a certain way. Cultivation theory is similar-ish in that you kind of, if you're relentlessly exposed to certain messages in the media, then eventually that will kind of begin to have an impact on the way that you think and the way that you view the world, and so on and so on. But yeah, other aspects as well. Prosumerism there is this idea that we as audiences now actually take what is provided to us by the media, we download it, and we then kind of create something new out of it. We can actually kind of, you can watch those YouTube clips of people that have downloaded news items and then turn them into songs, that kind of stuff. So the audience is now a much more kind of active part of media, and social media kind of backs that up. Those are the biggest online platforms at the moment. Certainly the platforms that generate the most money in terms of advertising would be the social media ones, and that is very much content that is created by an audience and links that are sent to each other, that kind of stuff. Okay. So yeah, the course is broken down into 3 sections essentially. Paper 1 is TV drama and then film and video game advertising. Currently the set texts are the Avengers TV drama from the 1960s, Patrick Mooney and all that, and a program called Cuffs, which was released in 2015, a BBC police drama. The current film is the Lego Movie, although it's not actually the study of the film. They've taken film completely out of media studies in recent years because it clashed with film studies. So it's the advertising of the Lego Movie and the Lego Movie video game, the kind of the poster campaign and the TV advert as well. Paper 2 is on set text, in terms of it's Radio 1 Live Lounge, and then paired music videos, and then Mojo magazine. And then section B is on the Observer newspaper. And you look at kind of how the Observer is today, you look at how the Observer was back in the 1960s, and so on and so on and so on. And then there is also a coursework element to the exam as well, which is worth 30%, and that's when pupils get to create their own piece of media. They can choose. There are normally 4 briefs that come out every March, and they'll get a print media brief, so usually magazines, something online, building a website, making a television program, or making a music video, and normally the 4 choices. And pupils get to choose one of those and try and create as realistic looking media product as they can. So it's advantageous to be good at ICT and those kind of things for that section of the course. So this is an example of an exam question and answer. This particular question was taken from paper 2, so it was from the section on the Observer newspaper. And you could get any kind of question about the Observer. You could get an institutional question, so who owns it, the Scott Trust or GMG, who regulates it, IPSO and Impress. The old Press Complaints Commission has now changed into 2 different regulatory companies. So you could get asked questions on that. You could get questions on media language, so the techniques of putting that front page together, the masthead at the top there, and the images and the captions and the columns and all that. You could get representation, what kind of world is being shown to the audience in that particular front page. I was just looking closely there at the lawyers and the divorce by consent story in that particular edition of the Observer from 1967, I think it was. And then, of course, audience. You could be looking at who's reading it. In the case of the Observer, it would be your kind of upmarket, probably quite left-wing audience. But in this particular case, you've got a question on context, historical context, and how that influences what kinds of things newspapers have on their front page. So you do need to look a little bit at the kind of history of what's going on in the world when these papers were being brought out. I just thought it's worth looking at these kind of questions because although we do have one word, one sentence answer questions in media studies, quite a lot of the questions in the exam are longer, discursive, analytical style questions, and so therefore, as I'm going to say on the next slide, being good at English is probably quite a useful advantage to have if you're going to take the subject. So reasons to take media studies would be, if you're interested in the world around you, if you follow the news a lot and you're interested in, or you understand a bit more about politics and a bit more about what's going on in the world and elections and wars and that kind of thing, I think that can help bring the subject to life. It's quite dry to study newspapers if you're not interested in those kinds of things because you won't have any understanding of really what it is that you're looking at. So that's important. I think being self-motivated is important. There is the aspect of the course which is the production, in which you're given several weeks to go away and make as realistic looking a media product as you can. And if you're unable to motivate yourself with those kind of longer deadlines, that can be an issue for some people. If you enjoy English, if you enjoy analysing things, if you're clear in the way that you write things, there's a good reason to take it. But also if you're creative, if you're good at subjects like art, subjects like ICT, that is always useful as well. If many people that take the course already kind of produce their own bits of media, they already make their own videos or making their websites or video games, and so if you're into that kind of thing, then it's very much a subject that you will enjoy, I think. Reasons not to take it: I think it's had a reputation over the years, media, as being a bit of a soft touch for some people. It never has been, but that is a reputation it enjoys. And it's not easy. It is difficult. There are some quite difficult, challenging academic parts to the course. And as I say, being able to write is quite important. Independent work, very important. It's no longer, or it never was, but it's no longer about just watching films and talking about those. That is a completely different subject now. That's film studies, and they've taken film out of media completely, really. So it's not just about sitting around and watching films, I'm afraid. And as it says again at the bottom, being good at English is important. So it's difficult to cover everything here, but if you have any questions, I'm sure Miss Parrott has already said this, but if you want to contact me, it's bescott@fitzwymont.com. That's BESCOTT @fitzwymont.com, and I'll answer any questions that you have. Thanks very much.